Hola mi gente, welcome back to episode 2 of season 2 of Frill Talk. I'm Marina and I'm your host. So first off, I want to say happy Black History Month, y'all, in case you forgot.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black.
Happy Black History Month. Feliz Día de Historia Negra. For those that do speak Spanish, will say I do apologize for those that do speak Spanish. De verdad disculpo, yo quiero hablar más en español. Es que la mayoría de personas que ven estos videos solo ven en inglés, pues disculpa. Te lo juro que voy a hacer más videos en español, hasta siendo de Frill Talk, pues quizás en el video partake. This Black History Month, quite honestly expect the usual shenanigans of, yeah, especially from our less melanated brothers and sisters. I hate that I have to say that, but unfortunately there's always happen. Something always happen. So as always, I feel like I don't say this enough in the beginnings of these episodes, but I do want to say specifically that there are trigger warnings to these episodes, as in, I will be discussing all different types of isms, so racism, fatphobia, colorism, colorists, all the isms, unfortunately, and I will have timestamps in the description, so that if you do want to skip the more heavier parts, you can do that. So I want to do the first part kind of less heavy, and then the rest of the video, or the rest of the episode will be more serious. So I have my laptop in front of me because I have a whole script and stuff that I actually want to talk about. So for those that are listening, or those that are viewing in the video version, that's why I'll be looking down. So on Twitter, honestly, whenever a sentence starts with on Twitter, you can expect, the crazy stuff. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a tweet going around, and I'll have it there on the side for you to see. There was a tweet going around, basically celebrating Black Lolitas, but then of course there were people that were misconstruing the word Black Lolita, basically how they're saying how the word Black Lolita just sounds ridiculous, because the word Lolita unfortunately has, yeah, a lot of people don't realize. Yeah, a lot of people know. A lot of people, if you've been in the fashion long enough, you'll see that every single so often in any given year, you'll see people talk about oh my God, I just discovered the word Lolita means this and that, and then there's people that call themselves Lolitas. Ew, that's gross. Da da da. But we know that for those that are a part of the fashion, we know this is unfortunately part of what's gonna happen. So literally, this happened on the second day of Black History Month. Obviously, people talking shit about Black Lolitas. The reason why I saw it is because I was just on Twitter one day, and a mutual just retweeted it, and it was of a big account that was trying to shut down that troll tweeter or whatever, basically indicating what the word Lolita means. And so people aren't gonna listen. If they don't want to hear, they're not gonna listen. So honestly, that's great that big account tried to defend us, but unfortunately, that just brings sometimes more unwanted attention. So I honestly thought that was interesting. I really liked that there was a lot of Lolitas retweeting with their cords. A lot of Black Lolitas, Black people were retweeting with them wearing Lolita. So I thought that was really nice. And quite honestly, if you don't know what the word Lolita means, or if you're one of those people that are still convinced Lolita means something else, please watch Lovely Laura's video. She did a phenomenal job making a short video specifically explaining what the word Lolita is and where it comes from, and then if you want to relate it to the book, she talks about that too. And I'm not going to do that for you because there's plenty of resources that goes over the word Lolita, and even for newbies and for veterans and all that. honestly, it was just like unfortunate because like like what would it then? Whatsoever, and will just say these mean things about the word Lolita without knowing anything at all, like what it means. So it's just like, it's so annoying to haven't seen it very often. That's like part of the reason why I don't really scroll on Twitter, because unfortunately Twitter is it's not doing the best right now. It's kind of accessible of a lot of bad stuff. To these people, because for the most part, most people aren't wearing the fashion to prove people otherwise. Like we don't have to prove like what Lolita is. We dress in it, we interact with our own communities. We all know what Lolita is. Like to those that, you know, are like newer in this community are trying to like prove like people that you know, Lolita is this, not that. Unfortunately, it comes with time. You know, if you're like a newer person wearing Lolita, and let's say if it's like your family members and they're like apprehensive about that, you know, just unfortunately we have to take it, but then also we have to recognize that like people's mindsets won't change, and we can't change people's mindsets if they're very adamant about that. So unfortunately that's just a very nuanced situation, and then it just depends on who's like you know, it just depends on the situation, unfortunately. So into more positive news, a fellow Black Lolita, speaking of Black Lolitas, a fellow Lolita, she started a new podcast called So It's by Callista, aka Magical Girl Me. Honestly, like if you're like newer, or like even if you are like a veteran or whatever, Lolita, getting a different perspective from someone else is always like great, just so like for one you can explore like your style, and then even like maybe get like new inspiration for your coordinates. So I wanted to highlight that because honestly, like I do appreciate that people love this podcast. I don't want to be like just like just the Lolita podcast. Like I kind of want to be like more J fashion. Obviously it's gonna be more heavily emphasized on Lolita fashion just because that's the primary community I'm in, but of course like other J fashions are welcome on this like podcast. So like if any like people that wear different fashions are interested in like discussing with me about their fashion, that's totally like, yeah, I totally welcome it, honestly. Another thing that happened in the Lolita world is that MTO for Milky Planet, a lot of people were going crazy. Quite honestly, it's a really cute print, but I guess it doesn't speak to me because I didn't like, you know, try to like get anything. And maybe I'm not as sweet as I dress. But quite honestly, it was so interesting. Like I personally never I've never worn that dress, so I can't really say like anything about it. I think it's a really cute print, and I honestly look forward to seeing more people wear Milky Planet, and this just makes me more hopeful for like re-releases of other prints, like aka Milky Chan. So I hope Milky Chan, the font, gets a re-release. That one I would go bonkers for and probably make myself go into debt because I just love Milky Chan. I love deer like motifs in general. Specifically, I just like how Milky Chan is like designed and everything. It's just so cute. So I definitely hope for a Milky Chan re-release. Maybe an MTO, maybe it'll happen. Who knows? It gives us more hope for older prints that, you know, we cherish so much. So I want to do a new segment on Frill Talk. Essentially, I want to show like TikToks, reels, posts, etc. To kind of like highlight the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a post like just showing community, just like, you know, people who are in the Lolita community, just like highlight people, kind of like I have a TikTok or a reel of the week or of the episode or whatever. And so if you want to, like submit like your post or whatever, I'm gonna start using the hashtag FrillTalkComm, so COMM. And if you use that hashtag, I would love to see, like, it could be your coordinates, your funny reels, TikToks of you and your community. I just want this to be like a more community like based like podcast to like just highlight and showcase it. So I just figured like this just would be a way for me to kind of make that happen. So yeah, I mean, I'll like look into it. I'll like look into hashtag. If people do post in it, that's completely fine. So yeah, I hope you would use hashtag FrillTalkComm to showcase yourselves and your community. So I don't want to put myself out there, but I'm gonna. So I do have an affiliate code. So 42lolita.com is essentially a shopping service. So it's run by the 42 Taobao shopping service. So they have a website similar to like how Devil Inspire works. So they essentially like sell Lolita brand or Chinese Lolita brands that might be difficult to get if you don't like use a shopping service. So they make it easier for you to shop Chinese indie brands. So you can go on their website and then order dresses, blouses, skirts, petticoats, shoes, etc. And if you use the code MarinaK_, all one word, you can get 5% off your order and support me. I personally haven't shopped on 42lolita.com, but I have friends who use the shopping agent, and they basically run like by the same people, and I've heard lots of good stuff. I personally use a different shopping service just because it's easier for me, but I've heard only good stuff about 42, the shopping service. So I highly recommend you check that out, and if you do, feel free to use either go to the link 42lolita.com/MarinaK_, or just use the code MarinaK_. So gonna switch gears here a bit and talk a little bit more seriously. So I watched Lovely Lore's video on why Lolitas are so mean, and honestly it resonated a lot with why I made this podcast. So it just like makes me think back to the summer of 2020 when everyone was putting hashtag BLM and all that stuff to show their allyship. Like everyone, their moms were like using those hashtags or similar hashtags, whether for to show allyship or for clout or whatever, or fake allyship as well. There were definitely plenty of Lolitas who were fake allies, or at least like only mentioned like anything remotely about BLM like once, like during that summer, and then kind of never said anything ever again. Like, so with allyship, it's a lifelong thing. Like, it's not like you post a black square and that's it. Like there was just so much hype. Like, all those lists of like black owned businesses were going around, or black owned creators were going around, and everyone was making those lists. And now I have nothing against that, because obviously that's a way to highlight and show different creators and shops and designers, etc. But like that was it. The actual movement is still ongoing. So while physical events for J Fashion right now is pretty limited, especially with this, with this pandemic and the uncertainties that bring with it. And, I totally understand like why some events aren't doing one this year, or are kind of like been pretty vague of like dates or whatever. I still wish that we as a community just like do things to show that, Lolita is welcoming for absolutely everyone, regardless of kinship, skin, race, religion, etc. I just feel like there's something that could be more done at physical events, And again, this is kind of like me beating a dead horse. But I just remember, so one of the cons that I'll never forget, it was probably like my first time going to RuffleCon in Connecticut, and I remember there was just like so many like brown and black Lolitas there, and it was like one of the best like experiences I've ever had, as someone that was pretty new to the fashion, and like seeing like, oh my god, there's a community of us. Because when I first started, there was like one black Lolita that like basically like inspired me. It was like someone that I saw like at anime convention, so it wasn't like on social media or anything that I saw them. It was literally like an anime convention and I saw her, and then that kind of like, you know, next step to go into this fashion. So, but I remember at RuffleCon that year, I think it was like 2015, I don't remember honestly, it was like around that time, maybe 2015, 2016, around there. I think 2016. But there was just a lot of like black oriented panels at RuffleCon, and I feel like I haven't seen that since, and I wonder why. So I don't know, I feel like maybe you know, it's obviously easier said than done, and I completely understand that as someone that has like helped out run events and, you know, have gone to cons and volunteered to different cons, not just J Fashion, but like I've helped out in a few anime conventions, so I understand, you know, the planning can be kind of, you know, but it's just, I just feel like there's just something missing at J Fashion convention and Lolita conventions that I hope to see more in the future. I feel like maybe we're not having like a lot of community panels, maybe because we're still afraid to address things within the community that are actively always happening, even as we speak, in terms of that the fashion it can be the most welcoming, but it can also be not the most welcoming. Like even when I see, like, you know, if I'm scrolling on Instagram or something and looking at like different Lolita like communities, obviously this would depend on the city and the city, country, etc. I still feel like I don't see that many black Lolitas like that go to like community meets. I can only speak for my own experience, because I know like my previous con, like there was a lot of shit happened, and basically like most of the brown and basically the POC Lolitas like didn't really want to have anything to do with the main com. And while, you know, that was over a year ago now, that's still something that, you know, happens and can deter people from joining like local communities, or, you know, reaching out to a Lolita that they maybe have followed for a long time, and they realize, oh, they live in my city, but they don't see them being welcoming, possibly. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone has to go to meets, and I'm not saying every black Lolita should attend their local comms, or any Lolita should attend their local comms. It's just because, you know, if you're not comfortable yet, or if you're not physically able to, like distance or any sort of obstacles or anything, then, you know, that makes sense. But like the only time that I felt that I was surrounded by a welcoming community, I guess to say, was when I was at the BLC retreat in New Orleans. Now, this isn't me saying like I only want to be around black Lolitas. Like I don't. That's not true at all. But, you know, like there's just a different experience for myself and then someone that would identify as like a white woman, for example, like a white straight woman. So I wouldn't be able to relate in quite many life experiences as someone who's, for example, of immigrant parents and first gen American. Like I wouldn't be able to relate to a lot of life experiences to them. I just wish more black Lolitas show out. That's honestly what I'm wishing for. And I love that we do have like the hashtag, like the 28 days of like black J fashion, etc. I love seeing those tags. Like I love seeing those hashtags. I love just going through them, because it's like, oh my god, there's so many. I love it. And I love that, you know, social media has helped with that. But I feel like a physically, like you know, like, this is just me speaking. This is just me, how I feel. I like to interact with people in person. I'm not, like, I wouldn't say I'm the most social or the most, like, active on social media. I don't think I am. And I think that's because, like, I prefer, like, physical meeting of people, interacting with people, having fun with people. Like, I remember the last Lolita, like, in Paradiso, I had such a fun time. Like, it was just great. And I hope that there's going to be more Lolita events. Maybe not this year, but maybe in the coming years, so long as it's safe to do so. So, relating back to Laura's video, I really hope people reflect. That was, like, the biggest thing that was, like, one of my biggest takeaways from watching our video, was that people need to reflect. There was so many things there that, like, it just made me think back to summer of 2020, like, when all the protests and all the people were, like, actively going to protest and actively using the hashtags. I just hope people reflect on their time or what they did and what they can do to do better. And, like, and then relating this to, like, physical events, I feel like we should do more community events or community panels that, like, I don't know, that, like, addresses, like, these things and, like, gives people an open and safe space to do so. And, you know, of course, I love going to fun panels, like AMV videos or whatever, like, if I were to go to the anime convention and, you know, playing around. And that's great, of course, that's obviously needed, and that's why we go to cons and generally to have fun with other people. But we should try to have more serious panels, I feel. And, of course, this would only be, you know, obviously if, this is just a suggestion as someone that is willing to do this. Don't do this if you're not in the best headspace, like, obviously. So that's as long as you're in a good headspace. I just feel like we should do more, not necessarily activism, I guess you can call it that way, but I just feel like there isn't substance in our community. Like, while I feel, you know, obviously we dress for this fashion, but honestly, there's so much of this fashion that's, like, inherently, there's just so much layers. And unfortunately, I just feel like, and while people can just wear this fashion for, you know, for the fun of it, for the frills, that's completely fine. I'm not trying to, you know, talk negative on that. I just think, like, as people, because our fashion stands out, obviously, I just think to some degree we should recognize those that came before us, and the history, the rich history of this fashion. Like, there's so much, and then there's so much that is currently going on that people just ignore. Like, for example, like, we could talk about, like, sizing and specifically, like, Japanese brands, like AP, for example, does no size inclusive. It's exclusive. The size is exclusive for AP, for example, and that bothers me because I love AP. I love many of their prints. And then, you know, we have Based Meta, who basically have opened more opportunities for Lolitas who are, let's say, like, bigger chested or just, you know, plus size. Like, they have actual plus size dresses and accessories and blouses and such. So it's like, and then, you know, we have the whole Chinese brands that do custom sizes, and we have a brand in Vietnam, Glitter Tail, they do custom and plus sizing too. So it's like, there's so many Asian countries that, like, do custom and plus sizing. Why is it that, you know, the more longer established brands, I guess, like specifically like Baby and AP, why do they continue to do the same thing? Like, even Leaf, they're not their size is based, it's not tiny, it's not size exclusive like AP. Like, they do have pieces that are definitely not as plus friendly or middle body friendly. So Leaf, for example, they have dresses and pieces that are definitely plus size. Like, I have a piece that can stretch even more. So it's like, it's just, I just find so ridiculous that, like, we still are not seeing any difference. And I feel like most AP dresses don't even reach like 110 centimeters. It's just, like, at a point where you have to, like, they don't care. It's like, maybe I have, like, a couple dresses. Like, I haven't bought AP dresses since well over a year. And if I do, it's because I'm hoping that I fit in it. Like, I have a few AP dresses that I have had altered because, you know, I really enjoy the print, and I was already prepared to alter it, and I did, and it fits me great, and I will never, and even if I do decide to sell it adds more value. And then there's just so many layers that like I just wish that we don't talk about enough. You know, and we have American brands, US based brands that make custom and plus sizes as well. And that's amazing. That's honestly, I just find that so amazing that we have all these like available like sizes, not just plus size, but also petite, because you know smaller people also have, you know, issues finding clothes if they're smaller than like the average whatever small is. And I just love that, and I just feel like we don't talk about that enough. Like Hungary, they do a phenomenal job with the sizing as well. So frustrating. So this sort of leads to my next point. So on Twitter, there was a discourse, I guess like Japanese Twitter in particular, there was a discourse of, so Baby had like their fashion show, Baby and Allison and Privates had their fashion show in February, in early February, and there was people complaining of the models, mainly because there was non-Lolitas modeling, but me personally, what I find the issue, so the lineup for the models, the link is right there, or these are the different models that they had. Don't get me wrong, they're all beautiful people, and obviously they know what they're doing, they're models, and some of them are non-Lolita models apparently. And so there was like some discourse. There was people indicating that they were tired of seeing the same Lolitas, and then there was people saying that, you know, like it doesn't feel good to have non-Lolitas modeling in a Lolita brand like spring collection show, which I can see both sides, but like it's like stuff like this, it's like, is it really that big of a deal? like I understand why we gatekeep, but you know, like for example, like Misako, if I remember correctly, she wasn't a Lolita when she first modeled for Kara. Like she got into Lolita after she started modeling. So it's like, you know, like there's like people that like they never heard of Lolita and they've never worn these clothes and then are interested in Lolita. But then obviously the other side, or one of the sides of it, are people, it gets more exposure to people who do not understand the fashion at all, or do not want to understand the fashion at all, and only want to judge. Which goes back to my first, the very first thing that I said of people thinking Lolita is something else. Just watch Laura's video. I swear to goodness, just watch Laura's video. Like, I understand, like I feel like to some degree, yes, we have to gatekeep because we don't want P-word people and F-word peoples to be in this fashion. And I totally understand, especially since, like, you know, admittedly, it is a predominantly female presenting wearing fashion. Like most people who wear it, they do look female or women to the regular eye. So we do have to recognize that that is how we will portray to other people, even if that is not what we want to portray or wanting to portray. Because unfortunately, you know, people associate dresses with just women or female gender. But as we know, clothes are not gendered, or rather it shouldn't be. So because there are plenty male Lolitas, or Lolitas I think is the other word that they use, that used for men or male identifying people who wear Lolita. I understand like why, I think some of them were like TikTok influencers or some sort of influencers, so they weren't like models, or maybe they probably were, but I'm not 100% sure, I don't remember right now. But there was lots of talks of that, and I just thought that was interesting because it's like they all look one aesthetic, like they all fit one aesthetic kind of category. Very thin, only very white or pale, I guess. And it's like, so obviously you recognize there are these issues, but then people still choose to ignore other issues, such as why couldn't have there been brown people, you know? Like if we're talking about Baby, it's a very well-known Lolita brand. It's just unfortunate that, you know, we only ever talk about one thing. I feel like when we talk about Lolita, we only talk about, oh, these people shouldn't be in this fashion. They don't know about Lolita. What about the people that are already in the fashion and are being told that same thing? I just feel we don't talk about that enough, or I personally do not see that conversation pop up enough. And it's just like, why don't we recognize this? Like, yes, I agree that there's, some of the points that they make about that. Yes, I agree that, it does potentially showcase it to a crowd that may not ever want to be wear Lolita, or will ever understand Lolita, or want to understand Lolita, which would probably and intentionally want to cause problems, as in spewing misinformation, saying false things, trolling, etc. If you recognize that's an issue, why don't we recognize other issues? I just me personally, like, there's not. So to me, someone who is considered an influencer is someone who holds influence or has the ability to influence people. And while a lot of the Lolita influencers are definitely, they fit one aesthetic, they wear pink and white and mostly skinny. And that's an unfortunate truth right now. There's not many, there are, I'm not saying that there aren't, but the amount of white influencers there are that wear Lolita versus how many people who wear fashion who are black, it's just like and unfortunately, like, I see so many like Lolitas that their content is great, but like, again, like this whole thing just goes back to just anti-blackness, and and it's just tiring. It's tiring. So I just really hope that as a community we continue to have these conversations, having discourse of plenty of things, but I just feel like there's just better stuff to think about than non-Lolitas modeling at a fashion show. That's just honestly my opinion. That's really all I wanted to talk about today. I just really thought this was an interesting, there was just a lot of interesting stuff that popped up on Twitter. Yeah, so I want to thank you for watching. So let me know how you feel, or if you were a part of any of the discourse. So I hope you liked this episode. I'm trying something a little bit different. So if you like this format, let me know. And let me know how you feel about some of this discourse. I just feel there just isn't a lot of media for us to consume to really talk about this. And I'm hoping to be one of those outlets. So yeah, so thank you for watching episode 2 of season 2 of Frill Talk. This has been Marina, and I will see you in the next one.